Pottsville goes down to Philadelphia. They beat up the poor Notre Dame Four Horsemen. They win that game, and it really helps put the NFL on the map.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Saturday sit-down, which a lot of you are really enjoying, primarily because typically not as time-sensitive. So you can go back and listen or watch youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, this episode, whenever you want. Today, we've got Dave Fleming, who has written a couple of incredible books about professional football. One I have read, one I haven't yet. And the one that I have read might be the reason why the Arizona Cardinals have not won a championship in 100 years. Dave will explain momentarily. There is a decent amount of news that happened on Friday, so maybe this show is a little bit more time sensitive than typical. We'll get to that later on in the show after the interview. Plus, I do have some winners for those of you that spread the word via social media or take advantage of any of the glorious sponsors you hear on the show, or just make a YouTube comment after you subscribe to youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. We'll start though with Dave Fleming. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Man, I love talking with this guy because I love his books. In fact, one of his books, Breaker Boys, one of my favorite books ever, because it actually reminds me quite a bit of my grandfather. He is one of the best sports writers in general that we've had over the last 30, 40, 50 years. He's written so many terrific things. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with his work over the years at ESPN and Sports Illustrated. I didn't know until he emailed me that he's a former Division I wrestler, which I have a lot of respect for as a Pennsylvania guy. I didn't wrestle. All my buddies did. I was the basketball player, but I would go, I kind of wish I had wrestled for a one-on-one sport. But his name is Dave Fleming, gem of a guy. You can check him out on social media at Flemfile. You got a couple books out right now. Actually, I need to ask him about that because the one book, one of my favorites, Breaker Boys, has been out forever, but I guess it's the 100th anniversary this year. And then you have a new one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave. You have a new one called A Big Mess in Texas.
That is perfect. And I am also shocked that you were not some form of a wrestler, because I feel like it seems like every lineman on either side of the ball has it's a perfect fit for wrestling. So I'm just glad we never like matched up in a match or anything like that.
You know, ironically, like my two best friends were the two big guys on the wrestling team. And the one had to cut down to 189, which was brutal his junior year. But they were the heavyweight. So I don't know that I would have been able to beat them anyway. And I was always a pretty good basketball player. So I think most NFL linemen are one of the two, right? They're either basketball players or they're wrestlers. Because I think, people would be very surprised how athletic and how well even offensive linemen at that level can move if you saw them do other things in life, right? Like most of us used to play defense or used to play tight end or whatever the case may be. All right, so I got to start with Breaker Boys because I can't remember, Dave. I think maybe I've had you on the show. Have you been on the show before, Dave?
No, we kept missing each other, and I mean, you've been so supportive of Breaker Boys and of the Pottsville Maroons story, and yeah, no, we just kept missing each other. So this is a first for us.
All right, so I'm going to let Dave lay out the story, okay? What I will tell you guys is I grew up, 40 minutes south of Pottsville in Reading. And Reading and Pottsville, very similar. They have a major rivalry, or at least used to in football. My grandfather was the captain for Reading High in 1935. He wore the leather helmets. They went up on a train, I believe, to Pottsville. He made Pottsville's all-opponent team, which is a really big deal. My wife, Dave, I don't know if we talked about this. My wife is actually from just outside of Pottsville. So she has a family propane business. They actually provide all the propane for Yingling Lager, Yingling Beer, Yingling Brewery, America's oldest brewery, 1839. They're in Pottsville, PA, where they still store the beer in the caves. So, um, if you know anything about me, Dave, I have a huge affinity for Pennsylvania and a huge affinity for beer and the biggest affinity probably for high school football. So you combine all those things. I'm a big fan of your book, and I want you to lay it out there, but I just want to give people the background for one of the reasons why I think the book is so cool. But Dave needs to tell you guys the story because it's really incredible and it has a tie-in to the NFL today.
Yeah, well, I mean, gosh, you are like it's like the perfect storm, perfect reader. So yeah, I appreciate this is the best part about writing and writing books is when you bump into people and you realize it's that 5 degrees of like everybody's connected somehow. It feels like everyone in Pennsylvania is connected to the Pottsville Maroons somehow. But you're right. So this is the 100th anniversary, and that's why we reissued the book with a new cover in honor of the 100th anniversary of the Pottsville Maroons 1925 NFL Championship. And it is one of the craziest. If you know anything about me, all I really do are crazy, weird stories that are just barely tangentially related to sports. And this is one of the best ones I've ever found. But in 1925, Pottsville was a city. I mean, it was thriving. It was the queen of the anthracite coal region. It was the Roaring Twenties. You had Yingling. You had all these this great mix of like immigrants and culture and everything. It was a booming coal mining town. And in 1925, they paid $500 and to get into the NFL. And what they did was they did this unique combination of football, college, collegiate stars from Pennsylvania, and they mixed them with actual coal miners who would work a shift in Pottsville, step out of the coal mine and practice or play with the Maroons. And so they had this incredible mix of like just complete physical domination, just badasses to the core, and this sort of like cutting edge, really smart, intellectual approach to football. And the result was they dominated the NFL. This upstart tiny little town dominates the NFL in 1925 and basically kicks everyone's butts. They crush the Giants, they crush the Packers, they crush the Cardinals. And at the end, they essentially win what they beat. They go all the way to Chicago to play the Chicago Cardinals in what is basically everyone agrees upon as it was the number one team versus the number two team. They didn't have a championship game back then, but it was considered the NFL championship. And they beat the Cardinals in Comiskey by 2 touchdowns. And they're declared the NFL champions in their first season. And as they're celebrating, the players are like, well, who else is there for us to play? Like, who, we need some challenges because the NFL isn't providing it. So they set up a game against the Pottsville Maroons and an all-star college team basically made up of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the infamous Four Horsemen. And I mean, you have to imagine this. That was that team at the time, before the NFL sort of overtook college football. That team, the Notre Dame Four Horsemen, were considered the greatest football team ever compiled. Pottsville goes down to Philadelphia. They beat up the poor Notre Dame Four Horsemen. They win that game, and it really helps put the NFL on the map. And then a week later, for allegedly playing in another NFL team's territory, the NFL strips Pottsville of its title and awards it to the second place Cardinals. And for the last 100 years, and Ross, you know this region, you know these people, you are these people. Pottsville, God love them, they have been fighting tooth and nail for a century now to get back their rightful NFL title.
Okay. I mean, there's a million things I could say now,
I
But
know. Sorry, that went a while. I tried to cut it down as
no,
best
no,
I
no. I
could.
wanted you that was actually perfect.
Okay.
But what this is where I want to come in and have people say the Cardinals organization used to be the Chicago Cardinals, then it was the St. Louis Cardinals, now it's the Arizona Cardinals. They have not won a championship since. And there are a lot of people that believe it is karma, believe that they are cursed because they took the Pottsville Maroons championship, right, Dave?
Oh, 100%. In fact, the Cardinals have and the Bidwell family have single-handedly stood in the way of Pottsville getting its title back. And Pottsville's been close in the 1960s and then again in the early 2000s. They had petitioned the NFL owners to hear their case. And it's open and shut. Pottsville was by far the best team. The Cardinals at the time were so embarrassed they didn't accept the trophy. But it was the Bidwells who can't win a title on their own, who won't give up or even share the 1925 title. And so when they did when Bill Bidwell did it in 1963, Pottsville placed a curse on the Cardinals. And currently, the Cardinals they've got the longest championship drought of any professional sports team. And if you're a fan of the Cardinals and you've watched them come super close a few times and really then struggle the rest of the way, you understand the Pottsville curse is real and it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get worse.
So, a few questions. Was there a Philadelphia team at the time? And so that's the territory they were in when they played Notre Dame and Philly?
Exactly. The team before the Eagles became the Eagles, they were the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. And at the time, it was those end of the season games that were tacked on that how teams really sort of broke even or made all their money. And you can imagine the pro champion versus the college champion. It's the biggest gate, the biggest receipts maybe in the history of football at the time. And so Frankfurt was really upset. Pottsville beat them like 48-0, by the way. So Frankfurt was really upset that they weren't going to get the gate receipts at Shibe Park against Notre Dame. And so they're the ones who placed the phony territory infringement restraint against Pottsville. It turns out, and I've debated NFL historians in Pottsville about this very topic, there was no written territory rule in 1925. So the case is open and shut. But I think the rest of the NFL didn't like that tiny little Pottsville had come in and basically, bullied and battered the NFL around for a whole season. And so they were looking for a reason to sort of teach Pottsville a lesson.
What was the first year of the NFL, Dave?
1920.
Okay, so this is like the fifth year of the NFL, but it's big cities. It's Philly, it's Chicago, it's big cities, and then in comes Pottsville. Now, how long did Pottsville have a team? Because what I've always thought was interesting is the Packers had a team at the time. Like theoretically, the Pottsville Maroons could have been, the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, I mean, and people still, if you bump into anybody in Pottsville, they are still sort of talk about that. That if not for this sort of tragic turn of events, yeah, Pottsville, PA would be the Green Bay Packers of the East. And it's funny, I think the NFL let them in only because, and this is great, this is sort of gets to the heart of the story, but the rest of the league, because of blue laws, couldn't play or couldn't play football or drink on Sundays. But because nobody dared tell a town full of coal miners what they could do on their day off, Pottsville played football and drank and did whatever they want on a Sunday. And so the NFL let them in so that teams could sort of come east and play like the Giants on one day and then play Pottsville on the next day. And the intention was just to get more gate receipts while you beat up on this unknown little, coal cracker town. And it ended up being the complete opposite. Pottsville just beat the crap out of everybody who showed up in town. But yeah, that's one of the tragedies of this story is that besides the Eagles and besides the Steelers, man, yeah, Pennsylvania sort of was robbed of this great the legacy of this great little coal town football team.
What was the last year for them, Dave? And why?
So, oh yeah, sorry. And so they finished second again in 1926, and then by 1928 they had the owner had gone broke, suing the NFL and suing the Yellow Jackets, and the team was moved to Boston, where it sort of then fizzled out. But you have to remember in the early days of the NFL, I mean, it was like something like 30 of the first 40 NFL franchises went bankrupt. So the NFL barely survived until all the way up until like the 1950s, until television money.
Right. And then that sets up your new book about the Dallas Texans, A Big Mess in Texas. Miraculous, Disastrous 1952 Dallas Texans. Tell me what that story's about, Dave.
Okay, so this is another one of those stranger than fiction NFL history stories. This was the 1952 Dallas Texans they're the last NFL team to go bankrupt, and they did it in epic fashion. In basically about 40 days, they spent and drank their way out of the NFL. This was the team that was originally supposed to become the Dallas Cowboys, but it goes sideways almost immediately. And the NFL actually has to take over the team. And here's that Pennsylvania connection again. The NFL takes over the team after it goes bankrupt and moves them to Hershey, Pennsylvania for the rest of the season. And the Dallas Texans sort of go down in infamy as maybe the worst team and the worst franchise that had the most fun. They basically went on a month-long bender in Hershey, PA. They drank Hershey dry over the last month of the season. And then the great little twist is this crazy team that was a complete mess. And I think this is part of the reason why the NFL has kept this team kind of a secret, is out of this chaos and bankruptcy and drunkenness of the Dallas Texans, they become the Johnny Unitas Baltimore Colts, who are the shining example of the greatest team that really helped establish the NFL. And I just love that because I think, as you know, the NFL, before television money came in the 50s, oh my God, the NFL, it was the Wild West. It was guys smoking on the sidelines, drinking at halftime. It was just carousing and it just looked like it looked like spring break and football just mixed in. And the game was wild too and violent. And every opportunity I get to write about that incredible era of the NFL, I jump at it.
That's incredible. Because I thought the Dallas Texans ended up being the Chiefs, like Lamar Hunt's team. I thought I remembered something about that. I didn't know they ended up being the Colts.
No, you're right. So then, like several years later, that's when Lamar Hunt put his version of the Dallas Texans in Dallas. And I think whenever you say Dallas Texans, because this team came and went so quickly, no one even remembers it. And they think it's the sort of predecessor of the Chiefs, but it's a completely separate entity. And it's because they came and went so quickly. But the Cowboys, this team, they had the Cowboys kept their colors and their logo. So there is a connection to America's team. They just sort of, like I said, they just sort of drank their way out of the NFL in record time.
So when they were in Dallas or when they were in Hershey or both?
Both. Yeah, I think you get the idea that I mean, there were so many injuries and there was so little protection and equipment that the players just to take care of everything. The answer was, 3 shots of bourbon, I think was kind of basically the answer to every physical ailment. And then they were so angry by the time they got to Hershey because they had been sort of jerked around by the league for so long. Yeah, at that point they stopped pretending. They weren't even practicing. They were just going straight to the bars in Hershey.
And that's crazy because that's where I live now. I don't know if you know that, Dave.
No, oh my God. No
Yeah.
way. This is
Ye-
this is crazy. I'm
Yeah,
telling
I
you.
live 10 minutes away from Hershey Park. I can almost see it. That's funny. That is really funny. So, and by the way, the Eagles used to have training camp here. There's a lot that used to be here. So, if you guys can't tell, I actually don't get a chance to read as many books as I used to because I feel like I always have like current event articles I need to read. But if I do read books, what I like in life, if I'm ever going to watch a TV show, it's a documentary, okay? Like about something that really happened. If I'm ever going to read a book, it is nonfiction, but like a crazier than fiction story, like one by my guy Dave Fleming, one of my favorite authors out there. Check him out on social media at FlemFile. And listen, if you're watching or listening to this show, you love football, you love good stories. I encourage you guys to check out both these books. I've already read Breakers Boys, I think multiple times. It got passed around. My father-in-law, everybody read that thing. And now I got to check out A Big Mess in Texas, The Miraculous, Disastrous 1952 Dallas Texans, and the craziest untold story in NFL history. Dave, you're the man. Keep up the great work. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. And I will see you in Pottsville. We'll be in the same parade when we get the title back.
All right, let's dive into the news. But first, the smells, the rituals, the noise, the passion. Game day and is an experience unlike any other. And whether you're tailgating, hosting, or just watching with your crew, choose Smirnoff because no game day is complete without the world's number one vodka. It's the perfect vodka for crafting delicious cocktails that are easy to make and versatile for any and all fans over 21. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer and head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, some news around the league. The Titans, they put L'Jarius Sneed on IR, so he's out at least 4 weeks, just like Bills safety Taylor Rapp.
Well, so there's other injury info we'll get to a little bit later. But when a starter goes on IR, a notable starter, and they're out at least 4 weeks, that is something to note, especially, I guess, when it's later on in the week. Snead had not been having a great year for the Titans. Certainly, they have not gotten their money's worth for the deal that they gave him last offseason as of yet. And then Bills safety Taylor Rapp, that's a very, very important position in the Bills offense. That'll be Bills defense, I should say. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle it without him on the back end.
The Giants, including head coach Brian Dable, running back Cam Skadbu, they received fines for their actions during Jackson Dart's concussion evaluation.
Well, this was probably the right move by the league because if you remember in the Thursday night primetime game against the Eagles, who they play again tomorrow, while Jackson Dart was in the blue medical tent, Dable came over and poked his head in. Skadbu came over. It's especially a bad look for the head coach. Then there was cameras catching Dable yelling at the team orthopedic surgeon or team doctor for the Giants. That is not a good look for the NFL. There cannot be any belief that coaches are influencing these concussion evaluations. Dable knows it. He apologized for it. He recognized it really right away. So did the Giants organization. But the NFL still had to take some action against them.
The Ravens, they're bringing in edge rusher Carl Lawson.
You know, it's interesting because they traded Adafe Owe, who had a sack the other night for the Chargers, but they recognize they still need other guys off the edge. I think Lawson had maybe 5 sacks for the Cowboys last year. He never really panned out with the Jets after he signed there in free agency from Cincinnati.
Speaking of Cincinnati, Logan Wilson, the Bengals linebacker, he requests a trade.
Well, he wants to start. He wants to play. He recognizes how important that is for his future, his career. The Bengals have benched him He was playing against Knight, Demetrius Knight, the one rookie linebacker. Then they benched Logan Wilson in favor of Barrett Carter, another rookie linebacker. And so Logan Wilson recognizes, if I want to have my salary next year or continue my career, I got to go somewhere and play well. So I think that's a smart move by him. I don't know if it'll happen, but if the Bengals aren't going to start him, I'm sure somebody else would. Maybe the Bengals can get something they need in return.
And there's a lot of injury info that came out Friday at 4 p.m. That includes Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. He fully practiced and looks like he's ready to go. Panthers QB Bryce Young, he's doubtful. And the Eagles will be without several starters, including A.J. Brown.
So the Lamar Jackson thing, we'll see if he's really full throttle. And then Bryce Young, that's not surprising. Both those things we talked about on Thursday's Even Money Betting podcast with Dr. Chow. And then the A.J. Brown thing is weird because he had the last play of the game for the Eagles and then didn't practice all week. Maybe he tweaked his hamstring on that play. That would seem to be the most logical explanation, was that he actually tweaked his hamstring on that slant and go, stutter go, sluggo, whatever you want to call it, to clinch the game against the Vikings. Some winners, by the way, the Spread the Word winner via social media, Kyle Richmond. The sponsor confirmation email winner, Brian Pearson, used the Game Time promo code Ross to take his kids to a Dodgers game. And the YouTube shout out, love that comment, youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL from Manuel Hernandez. That meant a lot, Manuel. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com, backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, and Delicious Pizza Boy Brewing.